right, good morning. My name is Kenny Tan, and welcome to the Real Biz Academy. I hope everybody can hear me. If you can't hear me, please let me know. Sometimes the audio doesn't work. Hopefully it works today. Okay. Well, the last I checked, it still worked. Okay, let's see who's in attendance today. We got Howard, Carlos, Hua, Shipping, Jennifer, Maggie, Nicole, Tanya, Carrie, Justin, another Carrie, Maria, Kevin, Lily, and of course, Joanna Cruz. Let's see, who else is here? Oh, wow, there's a lot of people still. We got Hannah, Melo, Feng Jiao, and we have Liu Yong and Lin Lang. That's wonderful. A lot of people in attendance today. Well, I hope the topics might interest you because I put in a lot of effort putting together this training. So without further ado, let's go ahead and start. There are 4 topics that I'm going to be discussing today. The first one is SB9. As you know, SB9 along with SB8 and SB10, they were all signed into law on September the 16th. If you are a realtor and you haven't heard about SB8, 9, and 10, it's about time you learn about it. SB9 is today's topic. It is about allowing single-family residents to have 2 units on it as opposed to 1. So essentially, they will, at least in the urban area, they will get rid of single-family resident zoning. That's SB9. SB10 has to do with allowing higher density development for properties that are located close to rapid transit. That's SB10. SB10 is another day's topic. We're not going to talk about SB10 today. We don't have time today. SB8 is an extension of the Housing Crisis Act that was passed in 2019. That has to do with accountability of the governmental agencies. You know, in the past, the local government agency has a lot of discretion. They can make you go through many different hearings. You know, they can delay your project without any kind of accountability at all. And that's probably another reason why the housing market is so tight. The supply of housing is so slow in coming. It has to do with all this regulatory red tape. So 2019, that law was passed. It was supposed to expire 2025, but SB8 extended it to 2030. Okay, that makes it easier for developer to build homes to supply to the general public. Yeah, let's see who else is here. Oh, we got a few more people. We got Andrew, we got Greek gender. I don't know who you are. You're probably from Twitch or something. Okay, Johnny, you finally joined us, so that's great. So that's topic number 1. Topic number 2, I want to share with you the concept of accountability partnership. Accountability partnership is it's actually more important to people that don't have the ability to hold themselves accountable. People that are at the highest level of self-actualization, they probably might not need an accountability partner because they hold themselves accountable very well. So you don't really have to worry about them. But for the majority anyway, we need accountability partners to be successful. All right, we got Fan and we got Chang Ping and then we got TM. Okay, good attendance today. So I appreciate your showing up. So we're going to talk about the benefits of accountability partnership and how you can be a good accountability partner. That's the second topic for the day. And let's see who else is here. Just call me Brian. Okay, Brian Lin, I think that's you. Okay. Now, the third topic, as usual, we have another brand new one on how to win friends and influence people. This one, I really take this one to heart because I was a lawyer before. As a lawyer, we just want to win. But the thing is, because of our desire to win, sometimes we might win. Our self-righteousness is so strong that we're always constantly pointing out the fact that people are wrong. How do you know if they are wrong? Because sometimes we say people are wrong and they are not. We are the one who's wrong, right? So I think the third one is important. I think you can win more friends and relationships if you know how to apply the rule. That's rule number 11. Fourth one, of course, is the question on how to complete an eviction notice during the pandemic. During the pandemic, it is extremely difficult, near impossible, to evict a tenant for non-payment of rent. In fact, you can't even evict them for non-payment of rent, generally speaking, because all they need to do is to sign a declaration and submit it to you. At this point, you can't really do anything about whether or not it's a false declaration or it's a true declaration. You don't know until the court trial. Even when you go to court, the judge is not going to second guess the tenant. So forget about evicting a tenant based on non-payment of rent. You're probably not going to win. In fact, at this point, most courts are still very cautious about evicting tenants. In fact, afterwards, I'll share with you an example. It's a real life example. What you can't do if you want to be successful in eviction during the pandemic. Okay, so those are the 4 topics today. All right, Amy, welcome. Okay, now let's go ahead and move on to my slide. Okay, first slide of the day. SB9 is also known as the Housing Opportunity and More Efficiency Act. Oh, Alec, welcome. Housing opportunity simply means that, by their estimate, this particular law will increase the supply of housing by 84,000 units. That is of great help to keep the prices of homes for sale in check. But the law was just passed on September 19. I think near term, you're probably not going to see the effect. It may be another year or 2 before you can see the effect, because before the law was passed, owners that wanted to build an extra unit on their property on a single family residence zoning is restricted. In fact, the only thing they can build is just an ADU. Now, if you're not familiar with what an ADU is, it stands for accessory dwelling unit. ADU, there is a square footage limitation, whereas with the SB9, there is really no square footage limitation other than it has to be of equal size to the existing structure. What that means is if you have a lot that is big enough and you have a 2,000 square feet property, you can actually build another 2,000 square feet on the same lot and not have to worry about the single family residence zoning. Now, for people that are in the rental business, that could mean more income for them. Also, this particular law, the SB9, you may be able to subdivide the property, split it. I think this it's probably not SB9. It's probably a different, might be SB10 that says that you can split it, make it into two, and then sell both of them. So essentially, if you invest in a single-family residence that is big and it's located in an urban area, you can make money from that, because even in single-family residence zoning, you can keep it as a 2 units on a single lot, or you can subdivide it and sell them as 2 separately conveyed properties. So you have that option. So more opportunities for the investors, who were limited by what they could do in the past. Now, the Home Opportunity and More Efficiency is known as the Home Act, which is SB9, applies to, what are the highlights? The key provisions of the SB9 is, I got a typo here. It's a ministerial approval of 2 residential units on SFR zoning. What does ministerial mean? It means pretty much, they have to grant it to you without any kind of hearing. Ministerial, that means that everything is over the counter, no hearing required, and no discretionary review is allowed. So it makes it so much easier to build an extra unit, just as long as you meet the health on this building and safety code. You should be allowed to do that. But there are not every single family residence lot meets the criteria, though. We'll go into it in a minute. There are certain types of single family residence that don't meet the criteria. All right, let's go on to the next slide. Okay. Apparently I did not change anything. Hopefully, okay, that's my next slide. Which SFRs qualify under SB9? As I told you, not every single, hi Henry, thanks for coming. Not every single SFR that you find in California qualify. For example, if you have an SFR in a very remote rural area, you can't convert those under SB9 into 2 units. It's only available in urbanized or urban cluster locations. If you're in like metropolitan like Los Angeles, pretty much everywhere within Los Angeles, the SFR can qualify for SB9. Okay, so that's the good news. However, there are certain types of SFR, even if they're in the urbanized or urban cluster, they may not be available for adding a second unit. What are those? And let's take a look. There are some restrictions under the SB9. Number 1, you cannot demolish and alter existing low-income housing for obvious reason, right? I mean, they want to make more housing available to the very low income and low income people. So why would the SB9 allow them to demolish existing low income housing? Certainly that would not make any sense. Therefore, you can't. If you're buying a property and if you're thinking of adding more unit to that property and make some money, first of all, there are this properties that you can't buy and expect to qualify under SB9. The first one is low income housing. Now the second one has to do with existing rent control housing. So for example, if it is in the city of Los Angeles, city of Los Angeles, West Hollywood, Santa Monica, those cities have rent control. Now, if a single family residence is subject to rent control, it doesn't qualify under SB9 either. So just be careful where you invest. Don't invest in those cities and want to make use of SB9, those cities that are subject to rent control. Number 3, can't demolish or alter property that has been occupied by tenants within the last 3 years. So another more restriction that you have to be aware of. So if you have a property that has been a rental for a long period of time, in other words, they were 3 years or longer, those kind of properties don't qualify. You can't demolish or alter, you can add. Okay? In other words, let's say, for example, you have an SFR. You got one unit already, so you want to, that SFR has been rented to a tenant for 3 years. You want to tear it down and make it into a duplex. You can't. And the reason is that you can't demolish or alter property that has been occupied by tenants for 3 years or longer. Okay, so that's the third restriction. Number 4, can't demolish or alter property that was the subject of Alice Act in the last 15 years. In case you don't know what an Alice Act is, let me just kind of explain to you what it is. Alice Act has to do with withdrawal of rental properties that are located in rent control cities, like city of Los Angeles, Santa Monica, or West Hollywood. Okay, if it's in rent control, the Alice Act permits the landlord to get out of the rental business. It's called the Alice Act. To comply with the Alice Act, it has to meet certain requirements. Today, we're not going to go into Alice Act. Now, if the landlord has exercised the right to withdraw the rental property from the rental market using Alice Act, and it happened within the last 15 years, that particular property cannot be demolished or altered. However, the restriction is only on the demolition and alteration. It doesn't mean you can't add another unit, because the whole idea is to provide more housing. So why would they restrict you from adding another unit when you're providing more housing? See, the key thing is it's got to be an urban or urbanized area. So if you have a property that is in rent control area, you can still buy them if the lot is big enough for you to add another unit. Otherwise, it might not be profitable for you to do so. So you can leave the existing property that is subject to Alice Act and rent control and low income and just build an extra unit. That will be fine. Hello, Ying Mei. Hello, Kevin. Okay. And number 5, no demolition of more than 25% of external walls. So, you cannot demolish more than 25% of external walls just to make your project work. Okay? That is something you cannot do. And of course, you cannot apply SB9 in a historic district, because these are historic districts. They don't want to change the landscape of the property in the historic region. That's why you can't really do that in historic district. And even after you have converted them, you can rent the properties. It's just that they don't allow short-term rental. It's got to be 30 days or more. In other words, so if you're thinking about running Airbnb, you can't do that under SB9 because unless your Airbnb patrons wants to live there for at least 30 days or wants to pay for at least 30 days, okay, that's not going to happen. And under SB9, the city cannot require more than one parking per unit. Okay, so that's generally the guidelines for SB9. Okay, now let's move on to the next topic. Benefits of having an accountability partner. For people that are good in, everybody can use an accountability partner, especially if you're one of those that are not very good with holding yourself accountable. You might be good in holding yourself accountable in one aspect, but you're not good in holding yourself accountable in another aspect. Few people are good in holding themselves accountable. Sometimes, my wife will remind me, hey, Kenny, you're supposed to do this, remember? Okay. See, for agents that want to be successful, I know in my Ferries program, there are quite a number of top producers. Those guys are doing 100 deals a year. They all have something in common. They all have accountability partners. It's hard to do 100 deals a year unless you can hold yourself accountable, because in order to do 100 deals a year, you have to follow a certain business plan. If your business plan, especially when you are new in doing prospecting, you don't quite have the skills yet to get appointments, you have to make a lot more hours of phone calling. Now you put it in your business plan. Now who's going to hold you accountable for the business plan? Nobody. If nobody, then your business plan is going to fail, because we all have a tendency to become very complacent if nobody is watching us, if nobody is reminding us. Okay, so just decide for yourself if you need one. I'm just sharing this concept with you. If you don't need one, don't get one. But if you get one, the following are the benefits you can reap from having an accountability partner. Number one, they can help you stay motivated. Your accountability partner who is somebody who knows exactly what your goals are. See, you can't not have a goal and expect to be successful, especially at the level that I was talking about. 100 deals a year and no business plan. You're never going to achieve that, because you know why? That requires a very high degree of accountability. If you want to do 100 deals a year, you need to have an accountability partner, and you need to learn how to delegate. If you keep wanting to do everything on your own, you're never going to do 100 deals a year. You're probably stuck at 30, 40 deals at best. Okay. People like Lily Garapova, she's probably going to hit close to 40 today. And of course, she could set a goal for 80 next year. Okay. You got to have a goal. It doesn't matter if you don't reach your goal, but you got to have it though. Okay. Now, the people who cares for you, it doesn't have to be somebody who is your spouse, because sometimes a spouse, they can be a good accountability partner, provided they are willing to do certain things. Your spouse can help you stay motivated, that's for sure. Number two, they can help you plan and strategize. You see, your spouse may not help you plan and strategize because they are not in the same industry. So if you find another realtor who is in the same industry, you know each other's goals about what you're trying to achieve for 2021, you can plan. That's why we, before the pandemic, we met every year to go through your business plan. And when you do your business plan, you need to be able to share it with somebody who's going to hold you accountable. What I've done before is that I would have them sit down and do the business plan, collect the business plan, but then I have no way of holding them accountable. I mean, they say they're going to do this, but are they going to do that or not? I can't police this thing. Therefore, I can only, advise you that you need to get somebody who stays in contact with you a lot. That way, the person can have a copy. You each have each other's business plan, so you can ask the other person, well, did you, in your business plan, you said that you were going to make 2 hours of phone calls every day. Okay, now, then your accountability partner will call, hey, did you make 10 hours of phone call last week? You see, people like that, they know your objective, and they can assist you or help you plan and strategize. They can act as independent observer. This is very important though, because we are human beings. Nobody is perfect. I'm not perfect. I got a lot of flaws in me. So shouldn't I have an accountability partner who will remind you, hey, Kenny, you shouldn't have said that. Oh, Kenny, you shouldn't have done that. Okay, because they are independent, and they will put you in checks in case you're doing something that is not good for your business. That independent observer can share with you about what you just did. You can take it with a grain of salt, or you can take it more seriously, especially if it's somebody that you trust. Remember, these people are independent observer. They don't have any benefit in your success other than you motivate each other for each other's success. Okay, if you are successful, your success may actually motivate your accountability partner. That's why it's called partnership. It's not a one-way street, it's a two-way street. Number 4, they can remind you of your goals. Definitely. They have your business plan. They know what your goal is. You're going to do 40 deals this year? All right, you've finished 20 deals. What about another 20? Okay, so they'll remind you. They'll help you push toward your goal for 2021. 2021 is about to end, but hopefully this concept will help you succeed in 2022 if you had a bad year in 2021. Hello, Catherine. Thanks for coming. All right. Number 5, they can give advice for improvement. Yeah, sure. If they're seeing something that you're not doing right, they don't necessarily have to be more knowledgeable or more superior than you. Remember, every single person that we know is our superior in some way. We're never superior than anybody. Anybody can be our superior in some aspect in life. So maybe you can get some advice from them for improvement. I get that from my wife all the time. Okay. So now, what are the qualities, or what are the how can you make an accountability partnership work for you and your partner's growth? Let's talk about that. Key ingredients for a successful accountability partnership. Number 1, you have to agree with each other to be supportive. We all go through our emotional roller coaster throughout the year. There are 365 days in a year. It is impossible to stay at the emotional high all the time. And of course, you're trying to avoid to stay at the emotional low all the time. Okay? So having an accountability partner will give you the emotional support in case, you made a stupid mistake. We all do. Sometimes I do too. So your accountability partner is there to support you, That's why sometimes you need to evaluate if your spouse is the right accountability partner, because sometimes they might say some harsh words. See, as an accountability partner, we can't we can't we can't make people mad at us. That's the next principle. We'll talk about that. Topic number 3 afterwards. Focus on the goal. You see, you each have to focus on your respective goal, and you can remind each other, hey, you set a goal. I remember you did your business plan. You set a goal of 5 transactions. You only did 1 this year. Okay, something's going on in your life. Do you need to refocus? Number 3, listen to understand. Remember, we previously talked about the importance of being a good listener. So as a good accountability partner, we're supposed to listen and try to understand where the other person is coming from, vice versa. Okay, so that will really foster a good accountability relationship. Number 4, communicate well and regularly. Now, if you have an accountability partner that don't communicate with you, maybe you should switch accountability partner, because you're supposed to communicate with each other well and regularly. Number 5, offer thoughtful counsel. Well, if your spouse is your accountability partner, especially spouses who are both realtors, you both know the industry well. So spouses who are both realtors, maybe they could be great for accountability partner to each other. Offer thoughtful counsel. Thoughtful counsel means that you got a problem. You share with your accountability partner. Maybe your accountability partner has a different perspective of looking at things. I know I do that sometimes. Sometimes my wife overhears my conversation with others, and she might remind her, hey, Kenny, you shouldn't have done that. You shouldn't have said this thing. You shouldn't have said that. I should not be upset at her. I may, agree to disagree with her, but I should not be upset at her just because she's sharing some thoughtful advice. Number 6, stay faithfully committed. Spouses tend to do quite well on this. But if the other person is not your spouse, it's probably somebody whom you can trust. You can share your life with that person. You can tell the person anything about your life, so he get a good perspective of what's going on, and he or she is there to support you emotionally. Okay, now let's move on to the third topic. Third topic is something that I think we all need to step back and think about how we deal with certain people. One of the things that I get the most often is, hey, Kenny, that other agent is ridiculous. Okay. All right, that other, Lily, you should try. Okay. You have a lot of potential. I appreciate it, because every year I set a difficult goal for you, and you strive really hard to achieve that goal. You might not achieve it, but if you strive it, you will get it. Okay. Show respect for the other's opinions. Sometimes I don't show respect for others' opinions. I cut them off, and I'm being defensive on the phone, or you just once you start cutting the other person off, that means that we're not showing respect for the other's opinions. Remember, we have to be a good listener. Let the other person have their say. Don't just cut them off, and don't be too defensive. You don't have to defend your position sometimes people might say, hey, you shouldn't do that. Okay. Well, you could turn around and ask the person, well, what should I have done? Instead of defending what you just did, it might be better to just kind of say, hey, you know what? I'm only human. I can be wrong sometimes. So rule number 1 says never say you are wrong. I'm sure many of us, myself included, at the heat of an argument, you say, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. Okay, now, rule number 1 says never say that. Okay, so let's look at the next slide. There is magic, positive magic, in such phrases as, I may be wrong, I frequently am. If I'm wrong, I want to be put right. Let's examine the facts. That is an invitation to look at the facts without saying the other person is wrong. Sometimes we know we are right, but do we have to tell the other person that they are wrong? See, that's what this rule is about. So we have to be constant. We have to constantly remind ourselves. I'll give you a good example. I have my legal training. I know how to interpret contract. Sometimes I may have, if I'm a listing agent, I may have the buyer's agent call me up and say, hey, Kenny, my buyer wants some repairs done. Will your seller entertain? Sometimes you're on the other side, you're the buyer's agent. Some buyer's agents are also afraid to bring this up, because they submitted a non-contingent offer. I've been asked by some of our agents, hey, Kenny, I got a non-contingent offer. My buyer wants to approach the listing agent to find out if the seller is willing to reduce the price because, the repair bill is like $6,000. I would say, though, if you have a request like that from your buyer, from customer service perspective, you should ask it anyway. Don't rebuke your buyer and say, hey, you got a non-contingent offer. Don't try to ask. Of course, if you do that, you are going to upset your buyer. Okay, you're right. He had a non-contingent offer. Sometimes in your you might not say the words, but in our tonality, we gotta be careful about the tone of the voice. Don't make them feel like, hey, you know what? I know, I submitted a non-contingent offer, but can't you just do me a favor? That repair bill is high. I don't want to lose this property, but at the same time, I want to see if you can convince the seller in giving me some discount. I've done it successfully. I've been in a situation where, now if you have a buyer that's already submitted a non-contingent offer and they make such a request, first of all, don't be in a hurry to let them know that they submitted a non-contingent offer. I don't think that's a good approach. First thing you do is to tell them, yeah, let me check with the seller. It's a non-contingent offer, but I understand your concern. I'm going to contact the listing agent and see if they will give us some discount. Okay? Don't tell your buyer, hey, you know what, your chances are slim and none. Don't even ask. First of all, you're going to make your buyer unhappy. Secondly, you're going to make them feel like they made the wrong decision or they made a poor judgment in submitting a non-contingent offer. They're going to feel real bad. Okay? Some of these buyers, I've had buyers that, and of course I made the same mistake in the past. I had some buyers say, why are you siding with the other side? Of course, in your mind, you're thinking, I did not side with the other side. I was just telling the truth. But the thing is, you're indirectly telling the buyer that you are wrong. You should not even try requesting, you know, a sorry about that. I hope you can still hear me. I got interrupted by a phone call. Let me go ahead and turn this off. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay. All right. If you can't hear me, you got to let me know because I can't really tell if you're hearing me or not. Okay. All right. Continuing with the thought about your buyer asking you to approach the listing agent to make repairs. I made the same mistake of letting the buyer know, reminding them that, hey, we have a non contingent offer. Under non contingent offer. Okay, great. Thank you, Maria. I appreciate that. Sometimes, I forgot to turn my cell phone off, and suddenly the cell phone comes in, it kind of screws up my audio. I appreciate that. So we don't want to, you know, it's like going to somebody's house and look at their drapes, okay, and then you ask the owner, how much did you pay for the drapes? $10,000. Now, even if it's true, $10,000 is like, no way that drapes was worth 10,000. If you say something to the effect that they have been had, you're not going to make them feel good. You're going to make them feel bad about it. Okay. So people don't want to be told that they were wrong or they made the wrong judgment. Sometimes, my spouse told me that, hey, you know what, you shouldn't have done that. But if I take it the right way, she's my accountability partner. If sometimes I reminded her, can't you be more diplomatic? Tell it to me in a nicer way. Instead of straight out and say, hey, that is wrong. Wrong. If the word wrong comes out, that is not going to be a nice conversation because you're going to make the other person feel bad whenever you say they did something wrong. Okay, you can use a different way. Don't get them stirred up. See, no, if you just open an escrow with a seller and then your buyer found something about the property that you felt that the other side failed to disclose, do you have to accuse them of having committed fraud? I wouldn't really do that unless I'm a lawyer who's representing. So once a lawyer is involved, lawyer can say things like that. But you, as a real estate agent, I wouldn't say that, hey, you know what, you committed fraud. No, no, no. You just say that, hey, say it nicely. Sometimes you might get people to be more fair to you if you say it nicely and say, hey, you know what, I know my buyer signed a non-contingent offer, but the thing is, uh, they didn't realize that it would cost so much money. They were not aware of this particular problem that's going to cost them $6,000. I'm sure your seller did not have any intention of misleading my buyer, but this thing has happened. You see, you got to uh, make people sympathetic to your buyer instead of if same thing with the listing agent though. If I'm a listing agent, the buyer approach me, I will never say, your buyer signed a non-contingent offer. Instead of saying, pointing out the obvious, I'm sure the buyer's agent knows that they signed a non-contingent offer. You can be more diplomatic. You can say like, so and so. Let me ask my seller. Now, some listing agent are even afraid of asking their seller because they are afraid of the sellers saying to them, I told you I did not want to spend any money on repairs. They are too afraid of saying that. That's why when they responded to the buyer's agent asking for repairs in a non-contingent offer, uh, they immediately told the buyer's agent off and say, you signed a non-contingent offer, pointing out the obvious. Then there's no need to do that. You could have done better. You could have said, I totally understand that. However, I am not sure if my seller is willing to pay that much money to make repairs. You can say it in a very pleasant tone, not in the kind of tone that say you are wrong. You see, you don't have to use the words you are wrong, but just from the tone of your voice, they can sense it that you're accusing them of something, right? So I've been guilty of that in the past, and I think if I can change my way of saying things to people, I think I can better relationship, and actually better reputation too. Now, because of that, I stopped doing this kind of thing. I stopped telling people that they are wrong. Okay. All right. Now, last, how to prepare an eviction notice using car form during the pandemic. I prepared one today that I'm going to share with you. But first of all, there are a few key provisions of the eviction law that is in effect during the pandemic. And let us look at them. Viable grounds for eviction. There are only 3 of them. I told you non-payment of rent is not going to work. And I'll share with you, if it's a property is in the city of Los Angeles, their eviction moratorium is not tied to the state law. Their eviction moratorium is tied to the local declared emergency. And based on what city of Los Angeles has said, they are not going to declare the local emergency over until August 1st of 2022. So in the city of Los Angeles, you definitely have to wait a long time before you can get the property back and put it on the market. And in the city of Los Angeles, the local ordinance is different from what I'm telling you now. These 3 exceptions that I'm telling you now doesn't work in the city of Los Angeles. They don't even allow any kind of no-fault eviction in the city of Los Angeles. So forget about this if your property is in the city of Los Angeles. If it's not in the city of Los Angeles, if it's in some other cities, you have to check the local ordinance. I can't really remember every single ordinance in every single city. Okay, but generally speaking, if they don't have their own local ordinance, they are just going off of state law. There are 3 grounds that you can use for eviction. Number 1 is called withdrawal of property from the rental market. That means that you don't ever want to rent the property anymore. Okay? And number 2, owner or relatives want to move in. Yeah, if the property is tenant occupied, whether the tenant is paying rent or not, if you yourself want to move in, or if your relatives want to move in, I think it's an immediate relative, not just any remote relative, such as your children, your parents, your grandparents, and all that. Okay, that's a second viable ground for eviction. Third one is property is under contract for sale to a buyer who wants to move in and occupy it. Okay, the third one is difficult though, because when the tenant is occupying the property, showing is extremely difficult, and the only type of people, generally speaking, they don't care about going in there and see the property. It's not that they don't care. They can accept the fact that they are not going in to see the property are the investors, but investors are not buyers who want to move in and occupy the property. So because of that, the third one is difficult, and then you have to show a signed contract, a binding contract, in order for you to serve the 60-day notice. You cannot even serve the 60-day notice using number 3, But some people might ask, withdrawal of property from the rental market. If you plan on selling the property, isn't that a withdrawal of property from the rental market? Well, yeah, you can argue that. And same thing with number two. If you're owner or relatives that want to move in, isn't that the same thing as withdrawal of property from the rental market? Well, then why do we have grounds number two and three? Why don't we just get rid of them? Why don't we just one single ground? So I think be careful when you fill out the form. You might want to check whatever boxes that might possibly apply. If because you don't know how the judge is going to read the statute. So if you're planning on selling the property and you put a for sale sign on, and the tenant take a picture of the for sale sign, preserve it as an evidence at the time of the trial, and then you go to court and the judge look at your 60-day notice and said, you put down withdrawal of property from the rental market. But then there's a third ground. How come you didn't use the third ground? You might say to the judge, Your Honor, I don't qualify for the third ground because I'm not under contract for sale to a buyer. See, the way the statute is to be interpreted is that if you have a property that you have not found a buyer for, and your only reason for ending the tenancy is you wanted to sell the property, it's not going to work because some judges may say that, hey, you know what, technically you don't have a good reason. The judge might ask you, why do you want to withdraw the property from the rental market? Because number one means that you're not selling it, possibly, okay? And number two means that number two might work if you're in the number two category. On your eviction notice, you might want to check number one and number two, because if the owner or relative want to move in, you can't ever re-rent it again, though. That's important, though, because if they want to move in, and then later on when the pandemic is over, you try to rent it again, you might get sued by the tenant. So you got to be careful. I think it will have to be a long, long time. Unfortunately, we don't know how long. Okay, so for this reason, if you use the proper reason, then the judge will allow you to evict the tenant. Now let's go look at the form that I prepared. This is a form that I got from CAR, California Association of Realtors. It's called Notice of Termination of Tenancy, COVID Tenant Relief Act. This form actually, if you check the right boxes, you can qualify for COVID-19. COVID, it may meet the requirements for Tenant Relief Act for COVID-19. I will show you how I prepared this one. In this case, I served them with a 60-day notice because they became a month-to-month tenant. So by them being a month-to-month tenant and they lived there for over a year, proper notice is a 60-day notice. So I did prepare a proper notice. But the reasons, I actually put both. I put family move in because the daughter wants to move in. And B, owner intends to withdraw the premises from the rental market. Now, at the time of the trial, be prepared to answer the judge's question because the judge is going to ask, do you intend to re-rent the property? Your answer should be no. If your answer is yes, you're in big trouble. Okay? And then if you look at C, why was C not checked if, well, C is very rare. I mean, most people don't qualify for C anyway. C has to do with demolition or substantially remodeling the premises. Only applies if work to be done is necessary to maintain the habitability of the premises. Now, if you have one of those property that is in horrible shape, it's not fit for habitation, you may qualify for C, but they use the word demolish or substantially remodel. So you could use this as a reason though. And then D has to do with intends to comply with governmental agency. If you've been cited, you got a ticket. Government asks you to do something to your property, and if it's not safe for the tenants to continue to stay there while you are trying to comply with the governmental order, you may be able to use D. And lastly, E is the one that I mentioned. Not only must you be in contract with a buyer, and it has to be to a natural person, no, not just corporation, LLC. And the purchaser intends to reside in the premises. So in other words, the purchaser wants to move in. And title to the property is separately alienable from the other dwelling unit. So it's got to be a single family residence or single family unit or a condominium. It can't be a multi units. Okay. Now there's another requirement that has to be met, but the language in the notice took care of that. And sometimes 30 days may apply. In this case, I had to use 60 days. Okay. Let's see here. Okay. I'm going to go to the next page. Okay, it's not on the next page. So let me go to number 1. There is something I want to share with you. It has to do with relocation costs. You're supposed to pay relocation costs to the tenant. I think it's in the statute. I think it says a 1 month's rent, and you can actually not collect the last month's rent as payment for the relocation assistance. Now it says here, if you can read the writing, it says except as specified below, if 1A-10 applies, 1A-10. Oh no, I'm sorry, 1A-1D applies. In this case, mine would apply. Tenant is entitled to relocation assistance in an amount equal to 1 month's rent. So you're supposed to offer the tenant 1 month's rent as relocation assistance. However, the way you take care of that is by not collecting the last month's rent. That should satisfy it too. By default, that's the language in the notice, so you don't have to pay any attention, just as long as you don't collect the last month's rent from the tenant. Okay? And there is something though. I want to go back to that owner enter into a contract. You got to be careful. There's another requirement if you want to sell the property. It also says an owner has previously provided a tenant with a single family property exemption. You must have provided that RCJC form before, and if you are required to and you did not provide at the time of the trial, if the tenant proves that you never provided this, E is not going to work. So, before you decide to use E, you got a lot more hoops to jump through. So I would avoid using E unless I don't have any other good reason to. And you can actually, I I think A and B actually works quite well. Okay, if you can justify it. I'm not saying you could, but you have to be able. Oh, actually, for A you have the same requirement. For A also, you need to have served RCJC. So if the tenant is smart or if the tenant is represented by a lawyer, they're going to ask the tenant they're going to ask the landlord at the time of trial, did you serve the RCJC form on the tenant previously? And if your landlord is not prepared, your landlord might lose the case, even for family move in. Okay. Now, the nice thing about B is it says owner intends to withdraw. The statute doesn't say exactly what that meant. So, you know, but the thing is, if you go to court and then you testify, the judge might ask you, why do you intend to withdraw the property from the rental market? After you withdraw it, what do you plan to do? Now that becomes important because if you say, my daughter wants to move in, okay, now I'm looking at your notice. Did you did the tenant previously agree that owner may unilaterally terminate the tenancy for such a reason? You're supposed to have provided the form though. So that's another risk that the tenant take if they use reason A, because I'm pretty sure there are some people that forgot about this. Okay? All right, so that's all I wanted to share with you about this particular notice. So some pitfalls that you must avoid. If you're thinking about evicting the tenants during the pandemic. Now, some people are saying, well, Kenny, the pandemic, the eviction moratorium will be over very soon. It'll be over on September 30th. I'll say this to you. Don't hold your breath on that. I think the chances is great that you'll get extended again. Uh, it's not going to be easy. That's probably another reason why we have such a tight inventory, because a lot of property owners wanted to sell, but they can't sell because there are tenants living on the property. Okay. All right. Okay. I spoke for a good 1 hour, so that's great. I hope everybody got something out of this. And next week, we'll have the market update for Southern California. And please attend that one as well and get the latest on the market situation in Southern California. I will see you guys next time.